Alan said war is hell. If somebody came on the show, Piers, and said to you after October the 7th, Alan, stop interrupting, Alan, let me speak. You've spoken the most on the show. Let me speak.
When was there a 7-Eleven?
Piers, 7-Eleven is the name of the store.
Tell me when there was a 7-Eleven.
Piers, let me try and respond. This is insane to suggest that Israel has accidentally killed 17,000 children. Anyone who says that should be laughed off television, whether they're a professor of law or not. 17,000 people were not killed accidentally. Israel is killing kids deliberately, has done so for the last 21, 22, whatever so months. You can't push this bullshit line anymore about people were hiding under hospitals.
But do you disagree?
We've seen it on tape.
Okay.
Welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of this epic showdown, because Mehdi Hasan just stepped into the ring against Alan Dershowitz on Piers Morgan's Fury Battleground, and it's about to get wild. You see, Alan Dershowitz is going to try desperately to sell the accidental killings narrative, but Mehdi isn't buying any of it. He's going to slice through Dershowitz's defenses, exposing the staggering absurdity of claiming accidental mass casualties. Let's just say Alan Dershowitz might need more than just legal law studying to get out of this one. Stick around, because later on Dershowitz finds himself cornered into making a $1,000 cash dare live on air. Talk about high stakes. It's a moment that'll have you laughing, gasping, and hitting replay just to make sure you saw it right. Mehdi Hasan is here dropping truth bombs harder than IDF missiles, bringing razor-sharp wit, unmatched facts, and explosive energy. Let's dive in.
There's an enormous difference. The United States government had many cases of accidental killings during every war we fought. And the difference between a democracy and a tyranny is that in a democracy you investigate. And you investigate.
Adam, before I go back to Mehdi, just on a profound level, I ask you this question. In what way is it remotely proportionate that Israel's now killed anything between 70 and 100,000 people on the Palestinian side, of which, let's say a quarter, maybe a third are Hamas terrorists? We don't know. But let's say that is the proportion of that number that have been killed, which means maybe 60,000 civilians have been killed. In what way is that remotely proportionate to an attack that killed 1,200 people, of which I think 800 were civilians, and wounded many more, and kidnapped 250? It's so disproportionate now that what concerns me about this, if I'm an Israeli, a moderate Israeli, so not a far-right Israeli or an extremist or any of these things, I'm just an average Israeli citizen watching what my government is doing in Gaza now, and seeing the fury that is building around the world to this daily slaughter. This is terrible for Israel. It's terrible for Israel's reputation. I think it's dangerous.
I agree.
It's dangerous for Jewish people. I think that the rising tide of anti-Semitism was despicable when it happened in the aftermath of October the 7th. It highlighted a cancer in the world, that people would react to that attack by being openly anti-Semitic towards Jewish people. But now a lot of that anti-Semitism, I'm sure, is being fueled by what is happening in Gaza. And I think, so I feel for Jewish people too. So I just, to me, none of this makes any sense now. You agree?
Well, of course it doesn't make... Yes, and that's why Hamas is winning. Hamas is succeeding. Hamas set out to turn the world against Israel. And they realized that if they murdered 1,200 people, kidnapped people, there would be a reaction. And then they went further, and they hid themselves beneath mosques and schools, and they generated the kind of killing that results in good people like you changing your mind about Israel. That's Hamas's strategy. Hamas is winning. Hamas prevailed on October 7th,
Israel is
and
losing.
It's going to repeat it over and over again.
I think Israel is losing in the court of public opinion. There are
That's my point. I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's my point.
But then the strategy
Hamas is winning. Israel, what's the alternative? The alternative is to let... No, of course, let's stop the war, and Israel has offered to do it. Just today,
That's not true.
Israel put an offer on the table that has been rejected. The point that I want to make, let me just finish my point. The point I want to make is Hamas had a strategy. We know there are capture documents that say it. That is, get Israel to kill as many Palestinian civilians as possible, and it will turn Piers Morgan against Israel because he's a good and decent person. And the good and decent people in the world on college campuses will turn against Israel. That's Hamas's strategy. We can't let it prevail, because if we do, they'll do it over and over and over again.
Alan, just to be clear, I haven't turned against Israel. I've turned against the current... I want to be very specific, because people love to throw around these phrases.
I agree with you. I apologize. apologize. I agree.
I've become increasingly critical of the Israeli government strategy in Gaza. That's my specific position. I'm not against Israel or Israelis or Jewish people. When people conflate it, I think it's really disingenuous. All right, Mehdi.
So,
I agree with you, and I apologize for any implication to the opposite. But that has been the strategy, prevailing, and we can't let that strategy succeed.
But Alan, that is always the terrorist strategy. It was the strategy of Al-Qaeda. It was the strategy of ISIS. So
that's right. Yeah, but that's right. And the United States overreacted too.
Right, let me get Mehdi's response. Mehdi.
So, a lot was said there again. Yeah. Let me try and respond. It's insane to suggest that Israel has accidentally killed 17,000 children. Anyone who says that should be laughed off television, whether they're a professor of law or not. 17,000 people were not killed accidentally. The children who were killed in a waterline were not killed accidentally. The children lining up, 9 who were killed last Thursday for nutritional supplements, as UNICEF says, outrageously for UNICEF aid, were not killed accidentally. Children who were shot in the head by snipers were not killed accidentally. I have friends of mine, doctors, who have gone out to Gaza and have come back and said, we saw kids were brought to hospital with sniper shots, bullets to the head, to the chest. Multiple American doctors have said that. Feroz Sidwa, Mark Perlmutter, Irfan Galaria. Go Google it if people don't believe me. So it's nonsense. Israel is killing kids deliberately, has done so for the last 21, 22, whatever so months. You can't push this bullshit line anymore about people were hiding under hospitals.
No, you disagree?
We've seen it on tape, Piers.
Okay,
we've seen kids killed in cold blood on tape. You've seen it, I've seen it.
Do you disagree? Do you disagree with what Alan said, that this was Hamas's deliberate strategy?
I don't know what Hamas's deliberate strategy was. And if it was, by the way, Piers,
hang on, let me finish the question. They created a vast tunnel network in which they hid, but left the civilian population to be slaughtered. So, in other words, I think it's perfectly rational to agree with what Alan said about the Hamas strategy.
Yeah, but hold on. What's interesting is, and as you pointed this out, why do it then? If we all know that's the strategy, no one forced Israel to go kill 100,000 people, just like, the Vietnam, the US, we burned the village to save it. No one forced Israel to drop 2,000-pound bombs on crowded refugee places. No one forced Israel to bomb hospitals. No one forced Israel to sniper shoot children. No one forced Israel to kill women holding up white flags, as we saw on tape with our own lying eyes. No one forced Israel to do any of that, which is why Karim Khan, the chief prosecutor, which is why the ICC judges all said Netanyahu and Gallup need to face war crimes charges.
A corrupt prosecutor.
Theodore, hold on, just to be clear on this. I know this propaganda is coming from Theodore Myron, who is a former chair of the International Tribunal on Yugoslavia, former Rwanda tribunal judge, former legal advisor to the Israeli Foreign Ministry, former Israeli ambassador. Theodore Myron, 94 years old, descendant of Holocaust survivors. He advised on that indictment and said, yes, Netanyahu should be indicted on the basis of all the evidence I've seen. He knows far more about war crimes than you do. And let me finish my other point. Piers, you keep saying...
No,
yes,
he
does, actually.
I know him.
Well, you haven't chaired an international... Alan, you have not chaired an international tribunal on war crimes in Yugoslavia. He did. So,
I've written books about it.
Great.
I've written a new book about it.
He actually prosecuted war criminals, and he's not corrupt. He's a Holocaust survivor. He's a 94-year-old Israeli-American Jew.
It doesn't mean he knows more about war crimes than Alan Dershowitz.
Yes, he does, actually. Somebody who's prosecuted war crimes, Piers does. And let me finish my other point, because both of you always interrupt me. Piers, one point you've said earlier about Israeli civilians, members of the public. You said moderate Israelis. You said earlier, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir don't represent Israelis. I wish that were true. I wish it was. But the Israeli
Well, you're going to cite that poll with 80%. But
I'm going to cite multiple polls, right?
Well, that one is a bit of an outlier.
Well, the Penn State, there are multiple polls, Piers. I can cite you 3 or 4. My colleague Diana Budo has written about it for Zeteo. There is a Penn State poll that shows 82% of Israeli Jews say they support ethnic cleansing in Gaza. 47% of them said they support killing every man, woman and child in every city that's taken back from Gaza, a la the Bible punishments of the Old Testament. So Israeli society is super pro the war, super pro getting rid of Palestinians from Israel. So unfortunately, we can't lay all this at Netanyahu's door and just say, it's all the fault of Netanyahu. If we got rid of Netanyahu, things would be fine. Actually, the Israeli opposition is super genocidal. The Israeli parliament's trying to get rid of the only leading Palestinian member right now. The Israeli public is
running polls. What percentage of Hamas are supported by the Palestinian people?
Quite a lot right now, because they see them as resistance. Yeah. I'm glad you read the whole...
Hang on. So in other words, you see the same problem on the other side.
I do see some problem. Let me make this point. Hold on. No, it's not, because you never let me finish a sentence. One side is the occupier.
Responding to what you said.
One side is the occupier. The other side is occupied. One side is the people fighting for their freedom. One side is the people denying them the freedom.
The occupation.
But let me finish a point. It's very interesting that you mentioned about different attitudes. All I've heard on this show since it began today is poor Israelis, think about the Israelis. Alan has said multiple times now, if your people were killed and if your women were raped, then you would respond like this. Well, the Palestinians would say the same because that's what's happened to them. Alan said war is hell. If somebody came on the show, Piers, and said to you after October the 7th,
when did that happen?
Stop interrupting, Alan. Let me speak. You've spoken the most on the show. Let me speak.
When was there a 7-Eleven?
Piers, 7-Eleven is the name of the store.
When was a 7-Eleven?
Piers, if somebody came on the show after October 7th and said to you, well, 1,500 people were killed in Israel, war is hell, would you be okay with that answer? You wouldn't be. So let's not tolerate it from supporters of Israel, please. Let's be consistent in our morality.
Okay.
Because that was a deliberate.
Okay. So is your favourite man Netanyahu's killing of children.
I think the problem, Alan, with where Israel's got itself with the government and the IDF at the moment, is that it appears to most people outside of the IDF and the Israeli government that there are a huge amount of children who are being killed on a daily basis, and this argument that none of it's deliberate gets increasingly tenuous.
We can see it. We can see it, Piers, with our own eyes.
I want to end because we run out of time.
But it's true.
Well, we run out of time.
It's true.
Yes, our eyes are lying to us, Alan.
I want to end, Alan, by asking you about...
Let me make one point.
Yeah, very quickly, because I want to just finish on one other point, but go on.
Sure, but one point. What conceivable benefit would Israel ever get by killing civilian children?
Well, exactly.
They would do everything to avoid doing that.
I don't
they
think
don't
they are,
want to
Alan.
do
You're
it.
lying.
They're only doing it. They're bombing a hospital.
Have you listened to Israeli politicians? They brag about it, Alan. You can come on here and gaslight the Western public, but Israeli politicians say with their own mouths.
Israeli politician
they say it with their own mouths, Alan. We've all heard them. We've all seen them say it. Not just Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, but Netanyahu, the Heritage Minister, the Social Equality Minister, the Deputy Speaker of Parliament who said burn down Gaza.
I will give $1,000. I will give $1,000 contribution to Hamas if you can find a quote directly from Netanyahu saying that we deliberately kill children.
Why not everyone else in his government?
No, you quoted.
Look at that, Alan. Look how scared you were. You won't give the quote for the entire Israeli government, will you?
But
go on, Alan. Will you say it for the Israeli government? I'll take your bet right now if you say it's for the Israeli government.
I don't think you can find a single person in the I don't think you can find a single person in the Israeli government, even Smotrich and even Ben-Gvir, who will get on this show and say, we deliberately kill children because we hate Palestinian children and we want them to die. That's just not true.
But you know
they do
what?
it because they use them as human shields.
And we will destroy Gaza is what's
Hamas wants these children to die. Hamas wants these children to die.
Yes, but you know what? Yeah. I don't think the Israeli government cares about the number of Palestinian children it's killing. I really don't. Because if they did,
I think they do.
They would now stop this war. That's my opinion.
Well, folks, if this debate were a boxing match, Mehdi Hasan just landed an absolute uppercut straight into Alan Dershowitz's credibility. You see, Alan Dershowitz tried desperately to defend the indefensible, claiming thousands of kids were killed by accident. Yeah, and pizza is a vegetable. Mehdi not only called out the BS, he brought receipts, logic, and real-world evidence from doctors who've been on the ground, completely obliterating Alan's flimsy narrative. Shout out to Piers Morgan, by the way, who surprised us all by grilling Dershowitz harder than Gordon Ramsay in Hell's Kitchen, pointing out the sheer insanity and disproportionality of Israel's actions. Who knew Piers had this much fight in him? Mehdi made it crystal clear though tonight, Dershowitz might be a lawyer, but even Johnny Cochran couldn't save Netanyahu from the mountain of war crime evidence piling up. And when Mehdi dropped the epic dare putting Dershowitz's money where his mouth is, the panic in Alan's eyes was realer than Israel's PR crisis. So let's wrap it up. Dershowitz leaves this debate limping. Mehdi walks away wearing the crown, and Piers earns some respects for actually pushing back. But hey, that's just me. Tell us below what you think and who took home the W tonight. Don't forget to smash that like button, share this video, and subscribe because more truth bombs are coming your way, whether Alan likes it or not. Catch you later.